Hi and welcome to ActiveCampaign, the Missing Manual 2015. Hi, I'm Rob Wilson, I'm the businessman. In this video we're going to take you through about an hour and a little bit more of video on a range of topics on the ActiveCampaign email marketing system. You can jump around from section to section using the timelines below in the description on this video. If you click on the time code, you'll see it will jump to that particular location for that particular subsection of the lesson. This video is made up of several lessons from my udemy.com course, which will go over a lot more ground, including some expert techniques. If you prefer that version, then visit the link below in the details and you'll be able to get a discount. You should see a page a bit like this one where you can see the range of courses that I have available. Otherwise, let's get started and I'll see you in the first lesson. In this lesson we're going to look at signing up for the first time for ActiveCampaign. I'll just walk you through that if you need some help with it. So if you go to the ActiveCampaign page, click on Try It for Free. You need to give a company name and obviously your email address. I'm just going to pause it while I do this. Okay, and then obviously read any terms you need to and then click Create. Okay, so what we need to do now is set our password, tell them a little bit about what we're interested in. Those are fairly straightforward things to put in, and then we'll click Get Started and see where it takes us. So I've completed those. I'm going to click Get Started, and we end up with a dashboard. All the information in the current dashboard that it's created for you is fake to a point. Until you start really using it. If you hover over it, you'll see it changes to telling you that you need to put your own data in. Obviously some of the things are real, like you have yourself, I think, as the first contact. It has got a series of steps that you can go through. We'll go through those in this course in the right order. Please bear in mind that the free version has access to the CRM system. So you have things like pipelines and deals, so the deals that's up here. If you're planning on just sticking with the basic setup, then you don't really need to worry about the deals. That's something that comes along if you want to do more of a traditional sales pipeline process. But realistically, I'm quite happy with just the basic package and using the system that's as it stands. I'm going to take you on a very whistle-stop tour of ActiveCampaign before we look into each of those steps in more detail. So this is a dashboard. After you've signed up, you'll see something similar to this. This has obviously got some data in it. When you start off, you'll have some dummy information in here. Obviously that gives you a good overall indication of what's going on. You can play around with this dashboard by adding bits and pieces from this list down here, or if you don't want that little startup list there, you can get rid of it. Depending on which version you've got, you may see different things on here depending on which one you paid for. I only use the basic version because that has sufficient for me. If you want to have deals and pipelines, that's discussed briefly in some of the subsequent videos. So as you can see, we've got all the contacts listed up here. Who's our top contacts? Campaigns are the broadcast emails that get sent out, so you can have a look at those and what stages they're at. You can click through and see in more detail. So lots of the interface is done by hovering over and clicking on things, as you'd kind of expect. So we have a whole series of automations. So these are things that are happening where processes are happening in a step-by-step fashion. You'll see those in much greater detail, but you can see some of the ones that we've got set up. So you've got a good idea of an overview of everything that's going on, plus a recent activity list. Again, you'll be able to see people's faces. You'll be able to click on these things and find out in more detail what this person has got up to. So that's a great dashboard, and you can see your hopefully your list growing over time up here. So along the top, I'll just briefly run through those. Contacts, that's basically your master list of everybody that's in the system. You can then use the filters over here to pick people out in different ways that are on different lists. or tagged in particular ways. So tags are like labels. So it's a really powerful interface for dealing with masses of people. We'll come back to that in future lessons. Campaigns, as I mentioned, are broadcast emails. So you can see those are in there. You go off and create a new one. It'll go into the email editor. You can put in your details and send it out to people. You can do split tests. You can delay sending things out. All of that is the fun that you've got to have in the next few lessons. So automations, these are, as I say, are processes that you would go through. Let's just have a look at this one as an example. You can see these are a series of steps. You create a little flow chart that goes through and does different things. You can see different things happening. Deals is part of the next level up from basic. I'm not going to cover that really in any great depth. Lists are where you organize people into different groupings. It's one way of organizing things, and you'll see their purpose as we go through. This is my kind of standard setup. You'll see towards the end the naming conventions that we use, that I suggest that you use. You may want to invent your own, and you'll see the purpose I have of different lists. Just to give you an example, this is my main broadcast list. This is a list of people who bought a particular product. Apps is a section where you can go off and look at different things that you can integrate in with ActiveCampaign. And you can also do things like tracking on a website, things that people have clicked. Reports, pretty obvious. You can go off and have a look at the reports for each of the campaigns that you've sent out. You can also have a look at the different automation sequences and get an idea of how they're doing, how people are interacting, and so on. This is obviously a test site, so it doesn't have an amazing amount of things going on. The other thing to be aware of is you've got some nice little options up here for your settings. That's where you find API settings and a few other bits and pieces, and we'll cover those in subsequent. We're going to look at the different versions of ActiveCampaign. When you sign up for your free trial, you'll be given 100 users, 100 contacts worth of the Plus plan. So the main difference is I run most of my business on a basic plan. The main differences are that you're going to get some more CRM functionality. So this is managing a pipeline, managing different stages of a pipeline, and lead scoring. If you want to do a VIP type setup, then you need to be able to give points to different people, and when they reach different points, you can pick out the ones that are hotter leads. There are kind of other ways of managing that using tags within the basic plan, so it's not something I've really worried about particularly. You've got a little bit more granularity in terms of user permissions, creating your own domain names instead of using their version, a bit more branding, some more training, and probably the more important thing there is if you want to do outbound SMS marketing, then you'll need to be on the Plus plan. There's obviously an enterprise plan which has a lot more detail. If you've got bigger requirements, you probably want to talk to somebody about that system, that version of the system. If you want to see the main differences, it's really everything underneath this tab here under CRM features, and it'll take you through the sales pipeline and a little bit more. It's more if you're doing one-to-one, really one-to-one work. If you're a sales team who's contacting people, you might want to do a little bit more using that version. So at some point when you get to more than 100 contacts, you're probably going to want to upgrade and need to pick which version. The process for upgrading your system from the free trial is fairly simple. You go up to the top right hand corner and then pick upgrade your account. You pick calculate your price. You'll have some usage details there at some point. You pick the package that you want to have. So you can put in other numbers in here and say 600, and it'll give you the best, the nearest one that you have to use. It'll tell you any changes in the plan. You can pick a yearly cost, which obviously saves you money, and then click next. Go through complete details, put in your credit card, and off you go. And it's a pretty instantaneous process. I'm not going to complete this one because this is only one for a demo. Why switch to ActiveCampaign? There are two main reasons. You may well want to have really powerful features that are not available to you from the lower priced products, or you may well be using an expensive product which has these features and want to save some money. For me, it was very much a case of I had some particular needs and requirements that I wanted to do some sales automation, and those were going to be horrendously expensive with other products, or technically they were fudges and real kind of workarounds to use with other systems like AWeber and Mailchimp. Not that it's not possible to do some of the things that you can do within ActiveCampaign, it's just very much easier, and while I can program, I'd much rather use drag and drop features than open a code editor. So the main features that I particularly wanted were some marketing automation. As you can see on the little demonstration here, you can see the automation builder. It's very much a drag and drop arrangement where you can do all kinds of really clever things. So you can, for example, create a welcome sequence that goes to anyone who joins any of your lists. Or you could create an unsubscribe sequence which tries to win them back on side, something that's quite difficult to do with other systems. Or you could create a VIP campaign that works out that somebody has visited your sites lots, opened your emails, clicked on your links, and creates a special list for VIPs and mails them automatically and tells them about it. Or you might want to interact with other members of staff and pause an automation while somebody does something manually, such as giving them a phone call or popping something in the post, and then restart the automation once that's done. So there are lots of things particularly within the automations, which is the reason that I wanted to use it. And the power is also hidden in things like the tagging, as well as its ability to integrate with your website and know what your subscribers are doing on your website. So all this for the same kind of price as I was paying really with with AWeber, and with using the other tools that I had to add on to AWeber to get it to do the same kind of things. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of why I switched over and some of the things you might want to look at. It's certainly worth looking at the marketing automation steps on the features on the website if you haven't already done so, and just having a good look at some of these nice little animated GIFs about what you can do and how you can do it, and that'll hopefully inspire you to switch over. In this lesson we're going to look at the key differences between the way that AWeber is organised and the way that ActiveCampaign works, just so you get a bit of a feel for if you're transitioning from AWeber into ActiveCampaign. ActiveCampaign, however, has a big master list, that big contact list, the grey box on there, which basically means that every time you add somebody to a list, it also gets put onto like an overarching main list that you can get access to of all your contacts. So you can go through that and you can find a contact and see which lists they're on and see what activity they've had on different lists. So it's much more focused around the person. There's a point from a charging point of view. You only get charged once for one person. For that person, if they're in two lists, you only get charged once, unlike AWeber and a lot of the other programs that are similar. When it comes to autoresponders, you have a lot more ability with those. They're not really tied to any list at all, although they can be. You can put somebody in the list from one form and do something different than if you put them in the list from a different form, for example. Or you could have two lists that effectively call off the same automation, which is what that sort of double arrow going over to the automation on the left. The automations, instead of being a series of sequential messages, you have much more of a programming language that you can go and you can do decisions. You can do all kinds of things really limited to your own imagination, including interacting with yourself as well as interacting with the individual. And depending on what plan you're on, you can also send SMS messages and interact with external web apps if you know a little bit of programming. So hopefully it's given you a little bit of an overview of the main differences, being that whole thing of a master contact list and lists within that master contact list, and the more subtle nuances of the ActiveCampaign automation. So I look forward to developing that with you in the next video. In this lesson, I'd like to look at the key differences between the way that Mailchimp is organized and ActiveCampaign. So as a Mailchimp user, you'll have got used to the fact that you have different lists, and each of those lists you can trigger off messages. You can set up an automation to send out a sequence so that one message comes off one after the other, or you can have individual automations that are triggered by different events that aren't necessarily connected to each other. On the other hand, with ActiveCampaign, you have a different approach. The lists themselves are held within one master list, so one master contact list, that grey box, so that when you add somebody to a list, it effectively goes into that master list, and you can find a person, and you can find out which lists they're on. You can also find out a lot more detail about their activity, and that's all collapsed into one contact record, although you can organise it by individual lists. The automations, on the other hand, the autoresponder type functionality is very different. It isn't tied to a list, so you can have different things happen at different times. So you can actually have somebody signing up to a list from one form and have a different automation happen than if they signed up through a different form. You can equally well have a second list that uses the same automation. So the automations really stand on their own but are triggered by something. They are a sequence of events, and the automations have, as it's shown there, that diamond, you have some decision making facilities in there. You can do lots of different things, lots of different steps at different times, delay things. You can even interact with yourself, so you can send yourself a message if somebody reaches a particular point in the automation that you're creating. So there's a lot more flexibility in terms of what they're able to do. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour of the key difference and the potential power of the automations that you're about to see, as well as a little bit of a clue as to the organisation behind ActiveCampaign. Before you switch over, there are a couple of things you need to check. Basically, you need to go through all of the places where you have software that integrates with your existing email system and make sure that they support ActiveCampaign. Though support is quite widely available now, it's certainly worth double checking to make sure that any of the squeeze page or landing page software that you work with, or pop-up box software, that it actually works with ActiveCampaign. So a couple of different ways that it can do that. If you're using something like OptimizePress, you'll find there's a category there which asks you for the API details. It asks for a string and a code. I'm not going to show you mine because I don't want you adding stuff to my list. That's certainly the way that OptimizePress does it. You could also look at, you may well find that other software like InstaBuilder, it uses the form code. So you'll have some kind of option like this where you can cut and paste the code from the form generator, which you'll see later, into that box, and it will work out how to send things off to ActiveCampaign. The other way you may well find is that you may well have a system that works with something like Zapier, which is a third-party bit of software. Not my preferred way of doing it, although you do get some free Zapier zaps, which we'll look at in another video, another lesson. Zapier is a way of integrating between different packages. It may well be that that's the only way that you have for some of the different things, but really go through and audit anything that captures an email address for you. You don't want to get stuck in a hole, but when you actually switch over. One of the questions that comes up a lot is whether you should use one list or many. Well, one list certainly would be simpler. You've only got one list to organise. You do that using the tags feature, and you tag people who bought products or who signed up for lead magnets, and you can use those to trigger automations, so it's all doable. On the downside though, the API links, linking and actually getting people to subscribe via the API, which products like OptimizePress 2 would do, doesn't really support tagging, so it really puts a dampener on that. You can't really do it. You could use the form method, the HTML form method, but it's not as robust a method of actually getting people to sign up. So it's still kind of possible, but not as good as it could have been. The other issue you have is that when somebody unsubscribes, they unsubscribe from everything. They're completely gone. So if they're you're broadcasting them something and they decide to unsubscribe, then they'll no longer receive any product updates. Also, when you're broadcasting, you'll need to use the segmenting. Obviously, if you broadcast to everybody, better be sure that you really want it to go to everybody. So what about mini lists? Well, effectively you have one big master list anyway, so you can see everybody in one list if that's what you want to do. In terms of unsubscribing, you then have much more of a targeted approach to it, in that if you mail out product updates to people who are product owners and they unsubscribe, they know they're unsubscribing from the product list. If you broadcast on your broadcast list, on your main list, and they unsubscribe, they'll still be on your product list. The API then still becomes an option because you put people into lists and not into, and that's how the API works. Yes, you do need to have a little bit more organizing on the downside, so you'll need to organize things by having good naming and putting things into folders, and you need to make an effort to make it simple. So both of those methods have a chance to be complicated by, in the case of one list, you'll end up with lots of tags, and the other, you could end up with lots of lists if you're not careful. I run things with 3 different types of list. I have one broadcast list that everyone gets put onto for anyone where it's a similar kind of marketplace. So if I had 2 very different marketplaces and different types of people, I would have 2 broadcast lists. I then build up lists of people who have bought particular products, so each product would be a separate list. So I can then do broadcasts about the product and product updates. And then I have freebie come lead magnet lists that are purely temporary. So people will be on that list for the period of time when they're receiving automations about that, and automated emails about that particular lead magnet. And once they're done, I then remove them from that list and just leave them on the broadcast list. Or hopefully they bought products. And if they buy a product, I'll take them off the relevant lead magnets. So that's how I organize things. And I hope you decide to go down the same route too, of having multiple lists, and that's what I'll be showing you as we progress with the course. One of the things you have to decide on is whether you're going to do a single or double opt-in on any of your lists. The principle behind a double opt-in, for example, is that when you sign up for a list, you'll then receive an email saying, do you really want to be on this list? And you have to click on it to actually get to be subscribed. So this is the principle that you can't just be sent anything, you have to have agreed to receive it. On the other hand, if you do a single opt-in, it basically means that you put your name into an opt-in box and you're on the list. Now, for a long time, double opt-in was kind of seen as the way to reduce spam, and in some cases you were actually penalised by your email provider if you hadn't double opted in people. That's really no longer the case. A lot of what's going on now is the quality of your list is measured by the amount of bounces, opens, and really generally how clean your list is, much more than whether somebody has double opted in. Because I'm sure you probably double opted in for things several years ago that are now no longer relevant to you, which you don't open and you consider to be, you may even consider it to be spam, but you did actually double opt into it. So it isn't a foolproof way of measuring whether somebody's spamming or not. So single opt-in. When you do a single opt-in, you will have a greater amount of opt-ins, so your percentage of opt-ins will be a lot higher. You'll therefore get more people on your list. It's a much simpler experience in that you put your details in, you click on something and something else happens. You haven't got to go to your email, click on something else, and so on. Which means in turn, as a marketer, you're able to get your sales message in front of them that much quicker. On the downside, you will probably have a lower quality list to begin with. You'll have less accurate lists, so you'll get more bounces, and you'll need to do a bit more clearing up and cleaning up of your list over time. But as I said, given that the quality of your list is now measured by its ongoing performance and not your initial performance, you should be cleaning up anyway. Double opt-in Obviously you're going to get a lower percentage of people opting in because they've got to do those extra steps. And the quality will probably be a bit higher. You'll get a lower need to clean up, certainly initially, but then that still carries on in the future. The user's got to go through more steps, so it takes longer to get to sales message, and ultimately you're doing that with fewer people. So which do you pick? Well, at the end of the day, it's all about whether you actually make any return on any of your marketing that you're doing. So you need to test. So pure and simply, it's to try it out and see which way works best for you. Personally, if you need to do something initially and you can only do one, I personally will now work just with single opt-in and good quality cleaning up after myself, and to make sure that my list is as clean as possible and that my open percentages are as high as possible. Great, so let's create our first list. So the way we do this is you could use the getting started link here, but we're going to do it assuming later on you'll want to go by this route. So if you go into lists, and you'll see there's an option to create a new list. So we now need to provide some basic information about the list, which I'm just going to pause the video while I fill that in and then we'll talk through it. Okay, so what I've done is I've set up a main list. If you go back to the lessons on one or many list, you'll see at the end of that that I have a broadcast list or a main list that I use. So let's set that one up. So I'm just going to click Create List. And there's our list, our initial list set up, ready to receive people. So the next things we then have to do are create forms. I'm going to go through, I'm just going to add another couple of lists and then I'll come back to it so that you'll know what I'm using going forward. Before I do that, I just want to show you there's an option under here for copying. So you can copy the list setups for this to make it a little bit easier for yourself. There's also quite a lot of other things that you might want to have a little explore underneath these options, but don't go too far with those now because we'll see most of those later on. So I've created 3 lists for the purposes of this training. So I've got a product list, I've got my main broadcast list, and I've got a freebie giveaway lead magnet list, whatever you want to call it, up the top here. So we'll see these again in the next few videos. This is a very quick lesson. The slide says it all. Really, I want you to wait before you try importing any of your details into the lists. Because later on we're going to be setting up automation, tags and other things, and if you import now it makes it you have to do some extra steps to get those correctly set up with the right automations. So leave it for now. I know you're keen to do it, but just to create your first form you need to go to the lists option at the top and then come down to your list, pick integrations, pick forms. That should give us a starting point. As you can see over here we've got a whole range of different options that we're going to be able to use, but for now we just want to create a new form. You can have multiple forms going to the same list, so you may want to use that for different purposes such as tagging people differently and doing different kinds of automations later. But for now let's just keep things simple, just to have one form for a list. So let's do a form for our lead magnet A. So we'll just call it lead magnet A form, because I have no imagination. Pick which list you want to connect it to. Click OK. And then I'll go off into the form designer. It's very much a drag and drop kind of affair. In my case I'm not going to bother with full names, I'm just going to delete that. If you want to change anything, if you click Edit, it'll let you change the what the button says. If you want to add the full name back in or separate out first name and last name, just click on the option there. Once it's over, you can move it across. Click Edit. We should be able to see that one's it only has the options of first and last name. You can't get rid of one. If you wanted to do just one name, then you would do full name, edit it, and just change it to first name, and that'll get put into your database. So it depends on how you want to use it. We can get rid of that. Okay, so I'm on a free plan for this one. So if when you pay for the things, you can actually get rid of that link. We'll leave that in there for now. And that is as simple as it gets to create your first form. In the next videos, we'll start styling it and start looking at some of the other settings and how to get that into your web. We're going to look at some of the key form settings that you need to be able to find, such as the opt-in email if you're going to use double opt-in, and how to change those to single opt-in if you want to do single opt-in. So first of all, we need to find the forms, because the settings are on a form basis rather than a list basis. So you need to go into one of two places to find them. You can find it underneath integrations. You can pick forms and it'll give you the list of forms for that list, or you can also find it under apps. There's a list of the forms underneath here, and you can you can go and find those and edit them. So either way, you end up in a page like this. So at this point, you can change the name of your form, and you can re-edit it if you need to make any changes. So the first thing you need to look at is your opt-in confirmation. So if you want to do single opt-in, you just need to untick that little box there, and that's all you need. Unlike AWeber, which will send one out at different times anyway, it doesn't do that. So if you want to set up an opt-in confirmation and use the double opt-in, there's your chance to change the message that gets sent out. You can edit that accordingly using the WYSIWYG editor and save it away. So the next thing we need to do is change some of the pages that you use when, for example, people click on, they subscribe to your list and they're told that they're going to get an email to confirm if it's a double opt-in, or when they confirm finally, or if there's an error. This is one of the things that's kind of a very confusing kind of thing here. It's talking about an opt-in email, which really is this section here. So the most easy way to do this is to click on that first one, and then look at these little tabs along the top here. There are 3 different types of message that will get sent. So if you're using double opt-in, this is the message that is used that people see after they've opted in. Then if they click on the confirmation link, they'll see this one. Or if you're a single opt-in, it'll go straight to this. Or if an error has occurred, again, you'll see a page a bit like this one. So in all the cases, you can edit these using the little editor here, or you can change it to be a URL, a link to a page that you've already set up. So you can just put that in there, click save, and it'll use your page instead of the default ones. So those are the basic things that you need to set up to get the list, to get the form to actually work. And then you can go off and test that form. If we go off into lists, you can then pick the forms and then click preview this form, and that will show you a link to that form that you can complete, and you should be able to get people to be added to your list. You can also take that link there and use that. You can find that link again if you need it by looking under integration for your site. You'll see there's that link again. So that's a link you can use as a test link. In fact, you can click on it and it'll take you to that form. So that's a way of testing things and quickly adding people to the list if you don't want to use the normal interface. So now we'll go on to styling your forms, and then later on adding those to your website in a variety of different ways. Now I need to add a little bit of style to that form. So I've got it in the list of forms. I'm going to edit it, and you'll see the section here under themes and style options. So you can pick from different ones that they've already pre-set up. You may also need to play around with the width that you've got available to you, depending on the size of your say a sidebar that you might want to put it into. So let's just put that back roughly to what it was before. So that's giving us a quite narrow looking form. You can add in other things. So you may want to add in some extra text. So let's just go back to build your form. I don't want to add in a field. Let's put in a header. And I'm just going to drag that to the top. Let's do a little bit of editing. I might want to put a little bit of HTML some underneath. I could do that. Or I could put in an image. Let's done it again. Let's just click on image. It puts one down the bottom. Drag that up. Let's put an image of our ebook. So I need to find an image. So I'm just going to pause while I do that. So I clicked on choose a file. I found the file, and then I'm just going to click update. It should upload that file. We should see it here. So one of the things you then find is that you need to have an image of the right size. If we go back down here, it was 220 pixels wide. This is about 400, so it's clipped it. So I'm just going to resize this image and then upload it again, and we'll see what happens then. Just bear with me a second. So what I've done in the meantime is I've resized that image, and because it has a transparent background, I've used an editor called pixlr.com/editor. If you can upload your images and resize them. It's a bit like an online version of Photoshop. So now I've uploaded that image. I might want to put a little bit of text above there. So let's add some text in. If I can type properly. So I would put in some more information in there about why some people would want to download. And then I've got a form that I can use in my sidebar. I will use that shortly. So now we have our form. We need to add it to our website. And there are various ways of doing this, but we're going to do this the form method using HTML. So if you're using a WordPress site, you can put it into a widget in your sidebar. If you're using an HTML site or a Joomla site, again, you'll have similar kind of things where you can cut and paste the form code. So let's have a look at how you do that. So we'll go to integrate with your site, and you can see we have embeddable HTML in this first option down here. There's also an option to use the WordPress plugin, which you just download for using the form, and we'll have a look at that in another video. So first of all, I'm just going to cut and paste that HTML code, and then I'm going to go over to my website, and I'm going to use one of the widgets. So I need to go into widgets, and I need to add a text widget. To my blog sidebar. Let's just move that to the top. And then I'm just going to cut and paste. I'm going to paste in that form. If we go back to the site, we should see the form that we created has been added, and we should be able to add in our details here and click download now, and it's as simple as that. So now we have our form. Let's add it to Facebook, to a Facebook tab. So you basically go to integrate with your site, click add. You've got add to Facebook is the top page that you have here. If you click add to a page, it'll then give you a list of the pages that you manage. You click the page that you want to use. Obviously, if you're not logged in, it won't do it. And that's added it to your page. So in this case, we should see underneath manage tabs. In fact, you can just see it there. It's appeared as a subscribe. If you then go into manage tabs, you can then move the order around. I'm not sure. I don't think you can actually change the. I think you can change what it's added as. Let's have a look. Let's just go back and have a look. So there's no option to change the name of that tab, but you can move it around. If you want to get rid of it again, You just go in here, pick. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Yes, edit settings. There we are. I should be able to change the name at this point. So if we want to change it to download, click save. If I go back to my page, you should have an option now called download, which is that tab. So you probably want to set something up that's a little bit wider and has more information in, rather than just using that one. But manage tabs and add remove tabs. Just click on that, remove, and it's gone. So as simple as that. So that's the basic method for adding to Facebook. So we've seen the method for adding to your sidebar using the ActiveCampaign HTML. If you want to use the ActiveCampaign plugin, you go to plugins and do a search for ActiveCampaign without a space, and then look for this plugin here by ActiveCampaign and install it. So we'll do that now. Then you need to activate it. Then we need to do some of the setting changes. So you go to Settings, ActiveCampaign, and as it says there, you need to find the API settings, which are not where it says they are. So let's go and find. I'll show you where they really are. So you go back to your ActiveCampaign, go into My Settings, and then click on the API tab. I'm not going to show you mine because I want to show you my API settings. You then need to go back to here, put the URL and the API key, which look just like this, and click Connect, and then I'll see you once I've done that. So once you've done that, the forms that you have should be listed, and then you need to tick the forms that you want to use. So I'm going to use that one. I'm also going to enable site tracking, which allows you to see how people move around your site and record that in their history. I'm going to leave that as it is, but you can take out the form styling. It will do that for you if you want to use styling within your own theme in WordPress. There is another option here, but you can't use that with site tracking enabled. So typically you just leave that as it is, then click Update, and I'll show you how that has manifested itself. So if we now go to a post or a page, let's add a new one, you'll see we have a new button, Insert ActiveCampaign Form. So we click on that, all the forms that you've ticked on that other page will appear here, so we can click on that, and it's put a shortcode, a WordPress shortcode that represents that form. So if we were to save that and publish that, that form would appear at that place in your page. If you also copy and paste that and go back to widgets, you can use that instead of the cut and paste HTML that you had before. So we'll just put that in instead. And then we go and look at the site, and we should see the same form that we had before. One way to integrate with systems like Lead Pages or InstaBuilder is through using the form code, which is then parsed and then formatted nicely for their templates. To do that, you go into the form itself, integrate with your site, grab hold of this HTML down here. In fact, if I can, no, you can't actually select, you can only select the whole thing. What I would normally do then is just go into here and see if we can remove some of the styling. So I'm going to look for the section that starts with that angle bracket form and just go down, try that again. I'm looking for angle bracket form there, and go down to the bottom and copy just that bit and get rid of the styling because it's just a waste of space. I'm going to go and use InstaBuilder first. So I've got a page ready to make into an InstaBuilder page. I can then pick a let's pick a squeeze page. So let's have a look. So that one there, for example. Okay, so now I need to go over to the list object, click on configure, and you can see I've got an option here to paste in that code. That's what I'm going to do. Click process. It's gone through and processed it. So that should now create a page that will work. Let's save that away. And go and view the page and see if it actually works. So there's the page, put my name in, my email. Nope, that's not the one I want. So it seems to have gone off and gone to the specified page that we gave it in the settings for that form. And we should see, if we switch back to contacts, this has got double opt-in set up. So if we click on here and pick unconfirmed, you can see that those details haven't been confirmed yet. And if you visit that person, you'll see that they're currently marked as unconfirmed. You can see it says there. So they're subscribed but unconfirmed. You can still email them, but they haven't actually confirmed properly yet. Look at how to integrate with another third-party squeeze page bit of software called OptimizePress. Something I love. I think it's fantastic. If you go off to My Settings, you'll need the API settings before you can start. So we'll go and have a look at where they are. Obviously you're going to see them blurred because I don't want to show you them. But the details that are in these two blocks, you have a URL and you'll have an API key, which you need to use within OptimizePress. So let's switch over to OptimizePress, having got those bits of details. You need to go to email marketing services. This is one thing you need to do just the once, and this will work whether you're for every other page after that. You go into ActiveCampaign and you paste in the details that we saw on the other page. I'm going to do that now, and then after that I'm just going to click on create a page so that you can see what happens next. So don't forget to push save after you've done that. To save it away. Then I've gone to create a new page, so you can use the template ticker. Let's go and find something that we might want to use. So we need a squeeze page, so let's just use a classic one. Demo. Let's see whether that works or not. Going to create a page for us. So there's our page loading. Okay, so here's the element that has the name capture. Let's have a look at how that works if I click edit. So you need to change the integration type. So now you'll have ActiveCampaign listed. If you haven't got that listed, then you didn't do the first step correctly. And then you'll get a list of the lists that are available. So there's our 3 lists that we set up. So we're going to put it into lead magnet A. You can also enter a form ID, so that's the number from that special link that we saw before. That's a little bit more an advanced thing, which then takes over the settings from that form. It also allows you then to do some clever stuff with automations based on the form ID. That's one for another time. You can also specify that you want to pick a thank you page, so you can override the settings. I'll scroll down, as you can see. That's all the settings for that. The rest of the tabs are to do with the actual button and the content on that page itself. So we're going to leave that as it is. Let's have a look, and we'll insert that. Okay, so I'm just going to publish that. I'm going to save and continue, and then click View Public Link. So there's our page. Let's see if this works. OP. There we go. Because we didn't specify a thank you page, it's taken us back to the same page. So you either need to specify a thank you page, or you need to get that form ID. The form IDs you can find by looking at your form. And if you have a look at integrate your site, you see a form ID there, 40. So if you put that in, it will treat it as if it had these same settings. So let's have a look, see if that contact has arrived. So there's our OptimizePress person there. If we look at that person, so you can see it says lead magnet via API, subscribed less than a minute. If we have a look down here, what they've subscribed to, you can see they're subscribed straight the way through. It will do a one-step opt-in, a single opt-in, unless you use one of the form IDs. So what I've just done is I've gone back in and I've just edited and added in that form ID 40. You still need to set a thank you page because it won't do anything unless you actually put one in. But this is if you want to enable double opt-in and you've set that up in a particular form. So I put the 40 in, and what then happens is that if we look at the subscriber, this is a subscriber that was subscribed that way. You can see they're subscribed. They've got a dulled out tick here, which means that they're unconfirmed. And so that enables you to get that extra level of double opt-in if you want to within OptimizePress. We're going to look at integrating with another third party, Thrive Themes, the ThriveLeads part of Thrive Themes. Brilliant product for doing pop-ups, in-content, sign-ups, sidebar widgets, and so much more. So first of all, you need to go to API connections, and then you'll get this screen. Pick the connection that you want and pick ActiveCampaign. Then you'll need the details from your My Settings page, and then API, which will give you two things, a URL and a key. You need to paste those in and click Connect. So I've saved that away, and if you go to Active Connections, you should see that you have an ActiveCampaign set of settings that you can go and edit or you can remove. That's what you need to do first. Let's go off then into ThriveLeads and look at the dashboard. I'm not going to give you a complete education in ThriveLeads. We're just going to very, very quickly create a lead shortcut and then use that on the page. There's lots to this product. Let's have a look. I'm just going to create a shortcut. If you use the product, you'll obviously understand a lot more about this. Create a form. Go and edit the design. So let's pick something that has, there we are, has one. If we click on this, then you'll see it has an option for connect with service. So we're going to use API. You could use the form method and copy and paste the form code, but the API gives you a lot more options. So now you can see we've got ActiveCampaign set up there, which list we want to be in, click Save. And then you can play around with the different settings that are on there. So that's really kind of the simplest way of connecting that together. This is doing some locking content rather than doing a squeeze page, which is one of the many things that ThriveLeads does. So I'll let you kind of play around with that. There's so much to ThriveLeads that you can do, but that's basically how you get the two things connected together. In this lecture, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the automations and the automations editor before we look at it in much more detail. So first things first, we go to automations. We don't have any at the moment, so it's going to give you a nice big screen that you won't normally see, but we'll create a new automation, and we'll call it something imaginative like test automation. There is now an option to import automations, which is one of the things we'll probably talk about in a later video. So the first thing you're going to be asked for is what's the first thing that is actually going to start off this automation. You don't have to pick anything, so we're going to ignore that for now. So this is the editor. So basically you have one or more start triggers that cause this automation to start. As I said, you don't have to have one because you can start automations manually. So if you had a one-up follow-up sequence that you do after you talk to somebody on the telephone, for example. But let's just add one in again. So you could have done it on the first screen. You see something exactly like this. So it could be that you pick that they subscribe to a list. So let's pick the lead magnet. Do you want it to run once or many times? Well, in this case, I'm happy for it to run once. So if they sign up again, it won't do anything if they sign up to that list. But there's a good reason for that. So in the main, you probably only want it to run once. Then let's pick it's asking you for a first action that you want to do. So let's send an email. So create an email. I'm just going to create a blank one. Just so we've got, say, a welcome email. It's going to go off into the email editor. If you pick automations there, it will just leave that as a default one, as a draft that you can come back to. So you can see we're kind of building up a little flow chart of different things that we want to do. I'll go into more detail in a minute. I'm just going to put a few things on and just show you what it could look like. We can put conditions in. And then you can build yes/no things. So there's lots that you can do. That's the real basics of setting up an automation. So now we're going to go into more detail on the different starting points and how you use them. The key thing about automations is they have to start at some point, and there are multiple ways that they can be started. So you can set up the start criteria here, and you can have more than one. Saw on the previous video that you get a nice little dialogue that comes up, so it can be on a variety of different things. The other way, we'll come back to that in a second, the other way that it can start is you can manually request an automation to start, and I'll show you that in the future. So let's have a look at some examples. So you can have more than one start, and equally well, you can start an automation within the automation itself. So you can start an automation. I haven't got any others, so I can't start them. So let's have a look at that little list. So you can do things when people subscribe, when they unsubscribe. So interestingly enough, people remain on your list, although you can't mail them as easily. But you can send out unsubscribe sequences to try and win them back. When they submit a form, so you can have different automations based on different forms. So you can have a different sequence of events that happen if they subscribe via a different form. If they open things, if they click on things, if you're using the event tracking on your site, you can look at if they visit a particular page. There are events that you can record as well that will trigger things. And then as you can see, whether they share, forward, or reply to an email. So you can kind of set up some automatic kind of replies to things, or do different things to remind you that somebody has replied. You can trigger things based on tags, so we'll get onto tags shortly. But you can, if you want to set up things based on the fact that you've added a tag in another automation or in by some other method, and that will cause things to happen. If you're using the something other than the basic version, you've got lead scoring, pipelines, and deal changes, and all kinds of other things that you can use. I personally I'm not using those. So that's the different ways that you can get people to be added to this automation and get them started. So now you've started the automation and triggered it. What actually happens? So you saw briefly what some of the things that I've done there. If you click on any little plus buttons, you can add in an automation, and you can see the different things that are available to you. So, for example, your sending options. This varies depending on whether you have the plus version, or bigger than the basic version, you'll then be able to do SMS. But the basic stuff you'll be able to do send emails, and you can also notify somebody else in your team that somebody has done something of note that you may want them to look at that set of details. So conditions, so there's lots of things you can do that are useful. Waiting for a particular time or for a particular date. Don't recommend too much using particular dates, because if you want to make things evergreen, then you probably want to make it relative so that it happens on a particular date and time. But you can do that if you're doing a launch and you wanted emails to go out at a particular time. Just be very, very careful with doing that, because if you have a series of those, new people joining that list will start to see multiple emails because the date's expired, etc. So just think very carefully about doing that, and maybe use some of the scheduling on campaigns instead. So generally I use them for waiting for a particular time. So your welcome email can go out straight away. You can then send an email an hour later or 2 days later. It's not just limited to a particular day. So you can set up conditions, as what we saw below, and I'll look at those in more detail in a minute. Go-tos are useful because you can link people to other bits of the process. So you could have a condition that means they skip several steps and it jumps over. You can start another automation, so you can add this person to another automation. You can end this automation, and there's kind of an invisible end at the bottom here of your automation anyway, but I put them in just for simplicity's sake. End another automation, so you can take them off something else that's not relevant. So if you had a lead magnet sequence, you can actually unsubscribe somebody from that. So you can end their automation for that lead magnet. There are other ways of doing it, but that's a really good, powerful way of doing it. And webhooks allow you to integrate with other bits of software, so you can send information to, say, your membership system if it has a way of doing that. That's one way of doing it. There are other ways of doing stuff with membership systems. Other useful things you can do, you can put people onto different lists or take them off lists. You can update details. The really powerful ones are adding and removing tags. You'll see that as we start to use that. That's a way of describing people and giving a good segmentation of your list so that you know people's interests and where they are in different bits of the process. You can add, there's some custom notes that you can see on the contact details. You can add into those. If you've got more than the basic version, you can use a scoring mechanism, so you can use that to create VIP clients that go over certain amounts. And as you saw, there was a start for automations for people's scores changing or being over a certain value. If you've got more than the basic version, you can do things like adding deals, changing the status that people are in. This is something, again, I don't use, so it's not relevant to me particularly, but you might want to explore all the stuff to do with deals. That's where it makes it into much more of a face-to-face, if you're doing telephone-based sales, to supplement your all the workings of your automated email systems. So those are the different actions that you can use. Just having a little look below, as you can see, let's just do something else. We'll send another email. We'll send the same email again. It will remember the list of emails that you've got in that particular automation. And then I'm going to just do a little jump. We'll go to. So I can now drag this link back up to here and send it around. It won't let me do that one. Let me send it back into that one. No, it won't let me do that because I'm going back on myself, presumably. Let's just add something else in here. Let's do a wait. And I should be able to drag a link over to there, I think. Oh, it's because I'm dragging to the wrong place. Okay, so silly me. So I should be able to drag that bit to, so it's a little dot you need to drag it to. So you can see it jumps back. So it's all fairly intuitive, and you can get to those different options again over here if you want them, or you can click on the little pluses. If you want to get rid of anything, you can just click delete, that'll cross. It's really kind of as simple as that. So now I've gone back to automations. You can see there's our test automation, and you can see it's listed as one of the ones that's inactive. So to make it live, we need to make it active. And now you can see it's got a green, a little green light next to it. This side here doesn't necessarily update automatically. So that's now live and ready to go. The other place you can do that is when you're editing the automation itself. You'll see there's an option here to make it active or inactive. Sometimes it's quite handy to turn these things off while you, if you import people. There's a variety of other reasons that you might want to just have something deactivated. Thank you for watching ActiveCampaign, the Missing Manual 2015. We've reached the end of the introductory section on ActiveCampaign. If you'd like to get the complete course with a promotional code, then you can find it at the following link. It's www.bizsysman.com/Udemy, which should be on your screen right now. Thank you for watching. Cheers.